Morning, and we'll get started. So today is our Live with Ryan Wunderlich. This is my 2024 edition, and just a little bit about me. This is where I usually start. I've got over 38 years of experience in AutoCAD across multiple industry segments. I am currently the support team manager for the AEC team here in Solutions Center at Imagineit. I do teach as an I've taught as an AutoCAD certified instructor before. I still teach AutoCAD, Revit, Civil 3D, InfraWorks, pretty much anything. I've had over 15 years in CAD management, 8 years in cruise ship building, 5 years civil survey, landscape architecture before that. I've worked in mechanical, electromechanical, printed circuit board and schematic design, architectural and acoustic design, as well as doing equipment layouts in industrial spaces. As I jokingly tell people, I've done everything but aerospace and automotive just because I've never had a chance. I have a bachelor's in business management and a master's in organizational management. So that's a little bit about me. And today's agenda. So we're going to talk about one of the things that drives people crazy, which is the hover behavior on the drawing tabs at the top. We're going to talk about how to change the behavior on the hover over and how to change to text versus the graphical preview. We're going to do both of those. Then we're going to talk about what happens to my autosaves and why I don't have one. I run into this probably once or twice a week. And we're going to talk about specifically why those things disappear, why you don't have autosaves when you believe you should have one, and things to watch out for. And then once we're done with those couple of topics, we're going to go to a live Q&A, and this is with any topic or question you have. It's an open forum. You can ask anything. If the only thing I'd ask is keep it to AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT specific. If you're in verticals like mechanical, architecture, civil 3D, you can ask those questions. I may be able to answer them quickly. If not, I will pass that along to the appropriate AEC team for when they do their webinars so that they can possibly have some things to talk about. I do know quite a bit about a lot of the verticals. So with that, we're going to get started. So change hover over behavior on a drawing tab. Well, some of us, well, actually many of us dislike when we move the mouse up and end up over a drawing tab, that if we end up on a new view, the display in AutoCAD changes and can slow down, cause problems, sometimes to even crash your CAD, right? We can stop that behavior by typing in File tab thumb over and setting that to 0. It'll stop that behavior and let you hover over the tab without switching the view in AutoCAD. This is a big one. This is one that drives me crazy all the time, and it's one of those that this is one of the first things I set because it's absolutely baffling that Autodesk would want this, but we'll go over this. So we'll do a quick demo. So basically what we're going to do is when you come up here to the drawing tab, if you have it on, and you'll see if I hover this, it's trying to change the view. Now, for small drawings, this usually isn't a big deal. This is a very simple drawing. Those of you that work in large projects like Civil 3D, massive architecture projects, you know that this can cause sometimes a delay of a few minutes before it will actually show the preview on your screen. Sometimes you've probably had crashes, things like that. So we can fix that by going File, Tab, Thumb over. And we're gonna, normally the default is 1, we're gonna set that to 0. And now you'll see when I come up here, when I come up here, well, sorry, I got click happy there. So when I come up here, now when I switch to these, you'll see that my main screen is not updating, but it does let me see which ones and hover over and I can pick and move. This is a big one. This is one that drives me crazy most often. So this is one of the first things I do like to change in my AutoCAD just because I hate that behavior, especially if I'm dealing with a large complex drawing. So that's the first piece, pretty easy. Now as we continue down here, we're going to talk about the other one. So for those of us that have graphics cards that maybe are on the low side, or we have issues with, let's say we have a lot of tabs, like let's say we have 50 or so tabs, we might not be able to see them all up there, things like that. So the other thing you can do is instead of giving that graphical preview, you can just have it show a list of the individual tabs by name. And we can change that to just simple text. And we type in File Tab Preview, set that to 0, and the images go away and will be replaced by the text of the tab name in the tabular list. This is one of the other ones that I really quite do like because it makes it very easy for me to know what's going on. So that is, and right, and we're gonna go here and it's File tab Preview. And again, we set that to 0. And now when I come up here, you're gonna see here's all the tabs in my drawing, and it's a very easy list. Like I've got a lot of tabs in this drawing. So not only can I switch to A size, I can see the actual tab name here, and it's a lot easier than monkeying around with this down here, and especially when you have a lot of tabs that take up more space here where you have to go to this in order to find it. I can now find it just simply from here, and I can scroll all the way to here. I can come back up here, I can go to the 11 by 17, I can come all the way back up here, I can come all the way back to model. Love this feature. Love turning both of those off because I like to keep my AutoCAD in what I call the simplest form. I don't like a lot of bells and whistles. I like things to be text. And again, personal preference, but this is one of those that I really do like. So again, I'm gonna come back here, right? File tab thumb over changes the behavior when you're hovering over the tab. File tab preview will either show you the previews across the top or will give you a list of the layout tabs. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Your AutoSave is turned on and you see it occurring in the command line. But when you browse to the location, it's generally in your Windows profile temp folder, unless you've changed that. You may see some BAK files, but you may not see the SV or AC $ you're expecting to find in that folder. Right, so my automatic save occurred here. It says C:\temp /AutoSave1 SV$. So if I have a problem, I can go back to this folder. I can try and find this SV$, and I find that it's missing. So this is a normal behavior. When the autosave triggers, it creates that SV$ or AC if you change the default extension. Some people do that. And then the next autosave event will create a new SV$ and rename the old one as .bak. However, whenever you hit QSave or Save As between the autosaves, the last SV$ is removed and all of the editing data from the undo and redo .ac files are put together with that SV and turned into a drawing saved file. It's also an important thing to be aware of as well is if you close the drawing that has an SV$ and do not save that drawing before closing, the SV$ is also erased. This is why you may have BAK files, so there are multiple autosaves as BAKs, but the last SV$ is erased when the drawing is closed. The other thing to be aware of as well, if AutoCAD encounters an error and it prompts you to save the DWG file before closing as, whatever _recovery.dwg, be aware that the last SV$ will disappear. I usually tell users to go to the AutoSave directory, make a copy of that SV$, then allow AutoCAD to save the file as the _recover. That way, if the drawing that is created is corrupted and unusable, you've still only lost a few minutes of work rather than multiple hours of work in some cases, or all of the work that you've lost. And the autosave occurs only if the DWG is changed. So if you open in drawing and minimize it and don't do anything inside the DWG itself, in other words, you don't pan, zoom, start a line command, anything like that, no autosave will trigger until you do something. So that autosave is 10 minutes between saves. This is what I typically have set right here, 10 minutes between saves. And you'll see this is where I have my automatic save file location, and here's the extension. So all of these things is what I'm looking for when it occurs. So if I open this up, right, here's where I currently am. I've been in this drawing. There's that drawing tab changes that I've just been in, right? There's my SV$, and that is this drawing right here. Now watch what happens when I save this drawing. I'm gonna save it. And we go back to File Explorer. And that SV$ is now gone. So I just want you guys to be aware of, if you keep looking for your SV or AC $ files and they're not there, every time you do a save, they're gone. So this is one of the things that I run across quite often is people call, they said, I did a save, something happened, the DWG didn't save, and I have no auto saves. This is why. So it's one of those things to be cognizant of. And there's actually a whole process of things that occur. One of the other common things is that if the save is impacted by something like file replication, if you're trying to save up on an appliance like Nasuni, things like that, where the temp file that gets saved over is not renamed to the DWG, you end up with something that looks like this. That's a .tmp. This is actually your drawing in the drawing folder. But these are the things you've got to be careful of. Is every time that autosave triggers, something is going to happen. You're going to have an AC, an AC $, SV $, whatever you've got for the file extension. It's going to be in this temp folder until you hit save. As soon as I hit save, it's gone. So we'll go into options. I'm going to save, I'm going to change this to just 1 minute. Right, so this should be occurring more often, right? Because again, all I need to do is trigger a change. And then when the autosave kicks in after 60 seconds, we'll see it appear down here at the command line, and then we will see another SV $ appear here. And it should appear here shortly. Right. Usually that's the case. Just taking a little longer than, right? 60 seconds is only as long as you need it to be. And when you're trying to show something, it's forever. When you're not trying to show something, it happens way too fast. But that's all I wanted to point out with that. So when people call in, they've had a crash or something like that, they can't find the SV $, that's usually what's happened. And again, if I trigger a crash event where it says, AutoCAD can't continue, we can save up to the last command, do you want to save the recover? What I tell people to always come in here, grab that last SV $ that got created, right mouse click on it, copy, right mouse click, paste to make a copy of that file, then allow AutoCAD to do whatever it's going to. That way you might lose only up to 10 minutes of work. Whereas if that SV $ has been there and you don't have a BAK, you could lose 20 minutes or more. That felt like the autosave just triggered. Not yet. There it went. All right, so again, I have my DWG right here. If that autosave triggers a second time, this one gets renamed as a .BAK. There'll be a new SV $ with a new hex code after. So you do have BAKs. Sometimes those are what we have to go back to, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what happens to your autosaves. Let's see, so what's the difference between a BAK file and the SV $? Let's start with that. All right, sorry, let's start with Anne. Anne, you said, has that always been the case with the SV $? Yes, this is how it's been since AutoCAD 2002. Might have even been as far back as 2000, 2000i. This is how it's always been. What's the difference between the BAK file and the SV $? Really, the BAK file is nothing more than a backup of the SV $. In order to turn this into a drawing, all you need to do is change the extension to .dwg. You can then open it inside AutoCAD. It becomes regular drawing. You can save as and put it somewhere else. Would you touch the move BAK command? The move BAK is for when you're doing saves and moving the backup. It will not have any impact on the SV $ and where your auto saves go. The move back command is only for when you're actually triggering the save command on where you want the BAKs to go. All right, Corey, regarding the autosave temp DWG, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to do, but when this happens to me, I found that I'm unable to save normally unless I close the program. I did find another workaround where Task Manager, there's a subtab called AC Core Console, that if I force quit that, I continue normally. I haven't seen AC Core Console running any other time, and I haven't noticed any issues from closing it. Well, that's a very good, So Corey, you probably have a different situation. You have a configuration problem. So what AC Core Console is, for those of you that don't know, is headless, modeless, licenseless AutoCAD. Basically, AC Core Console allows programmers like myself to do things in the AutoCAD environment. I can run scripts, Lisp, things like that without actually technically opening AutoCAD to a user interface. That's typically what AC Core Console is doing. So if AC Core Console is running, that means something else is going on in the background that it's triggering a separate process that it shouldn't normally be doing. Now, if you're doing some customized Lisp routines or some customized programming, that could be where the AC Core Console is coming from. Normally, I would not see that ever running. So that might be something we need to do a little more investigation on. If you've got a support plan with us, by all means, let us know. We can get in there. We can figure out what's going on. Right. So what he's talking about here is there is a separate under Autodesk, under AutoCAD 2025, right? So you have an AC Core Console right here. This is essentially AutoCAD without the user interface, doesn't consume a license, doesn't need licensing of any kind. This is to run basic AutoCAD scripting, Lisp, VBA operations from a shell. Like I can actually run this from like a DOS command where I could say AC Core Console, tell it which drawing file to open, tell it which script to run. It'll do that, close, done. So if this is running, you might have a problem somewhere. That's usually where this is coming from, is either you've got custom programming or you have something else that's triggering AC Core Console. It might be a configuration issue with your AutoCAD, but normally that should never be running. Okay, and Corey, yep, LeMac does use some AC Core Console stuff depending on what Lisp routines you're using of his, so he might be going about the problem by doing it in a headless AutoCAD, so that could be where it could be coming from. If you narrow down which Lisp routine it is, we can definitely, definitely take a look at that and see what might be causing that. All right, so I'm curious now, do I have a second AutoSave now that we've talked about that? Go back down to my temp folder. Yep, and I have, see, there's my BAK from 916. Here's my SV $ from 920, because I didn't do anything in the drawing until I went back in and zoomed a little bit, then it triggered that. So now if I save again, I want to show you the SV $ is gone. The BAK file is the only thing that's left. So in theory, I've lost 5 minutes of work because it's currently 9:22 if I need to go back to that. Any questions on any of that I've covered? This is one of my favorites. I love showing this to people because people love this. Right? Can flip back and forth wherever we want. There's some other things up, come on. Right, there you go. There are some other things that this drawing tab can do. Like I like to go open file location if I need to know where this drawing is and I've opened it. I can close all the drawings that are currently open. I can close just this drawing. I can save all the drawing tabs that I have open. I can just save this one. I can go new, open. So if you've never played around with the right mouse click up here, you get some other options. If I had multiple drawings open, I can close everything that I have open except the one that I'm currently on. So fun things. People don't know about a lot of this stuff because I've shown this to people and they go, I didn't know that existed, right? Okay. So this is live Q&A time. So this is your chance to ask anything I've not covered this year or in past webinars. You can ask any questions related to AutoCAD-based software. Again, I'd prefer if we keep it to just basic AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT. If you do have more questions regarding vertical products, if it's going to be an easy one, I will do my best to answer it now. I will try and answer them in the order they do appear in the Q&A box. So put your questions in the question box. I'll be happy to answer them. If I can't answer a question or it would consume too much time to go through, please know we do value your input and I will make sure to include any topic like that in a future webinar. Lori is usually pretty good. If you have a question that you'd like covered, and we'll talk about that too at the end slide, you can always send any requests for specific things you'd like to see in future webinars to Lori. Lori passes that on to me. I keep a running list of things that I want to cover with people. Let's see, you mentioned AC Core Console. I like running it for script processing. I can enable normal auto Lisp to do that, but I do use a lot of the VLA functions and those don't work. I'm sure I'm missing loading a specific ARX, but I'm not sure which one. VLload.com does not help. Because the VLA functions are usually ActiveX based, I'm not sure that AC Core Console runs ActiveX. That I would need to double check because it's an ActiveX component. Basically, it's a subset of Lisp that's using more advanced features, Robert. So that could be where the AC Core Console is failing to load those things because it is requiring ActiveX, which usually requires a UI interface item. At least that's my thought knowledge. Is there no way to stop erasing of the SV $sign files? I wish there were 10-minute increments. There is no way to stop the erasing of the SV $sign. As soon as you hit save, it's there, or if you close the drawing without saving, it disappears if you have an autosave. Can I please show the AC Core Console? AC Core Console, I don't have any scripts to actually run it. I would like to show that at some point, but that's more advanced type programming. It's not something the typical end user would normally use. That's something you would use to more run scripts off of. Good example of that is a Vault job processor. If you're running Vault and you're doing job processing where you put drawings in the location, job processor runs, it runs AC Core Console, runs those drawings through a specific set of commands, puts them in Vault, things like that. X load control setting explanation. Oh, that is an excellent one. So for those of you that don't know, this is the best place to go. So we come down here, right? We go to Express Tools, we go to System Variables, and we'll talk about the X load control because these are where all of your basic AutoCAD stuff ends up. So X load control. So normal setting is 2. A copy of each reference file is stored in the folder specified by the X load path, which is usually your temp folder. And then turns on demand loading. I preferred it to because basically what it's going to do is it's going to make a copy of the XREF. It's going to put that in my temporary folder, and that's what it's going to base any of the work off of. It still maintains a heartbeat check to the server. So if somebody does change the XREF, it's going to let you know that the XREF has changed. And when you go ahead and resynchronize or basically you refresh or reload the XREF, it'll make a new copy in your temp folder. I have seen situations where this causes problems, especially if there's a corruption or problem with the rights on the file that gets copied over, that suddenly now you can't update the XREF and we have to clear out your temp folder in order for it to do that. 1 turns on demand loading. Reference drawings will be kept open and locked. If you have it set to 1, when you open up a drawing that has XREF, you are going to put a file write deny from the Windows rights on each of those XREFs, so nobody else can open them without it telling them it's read only, because you will have control of all of them. And the last one is turns off demand loading. The entire drawing is loaded. Basically what that's going to do is it's going to load everything on your system. When dealing with very large drawings, 2 and 0 are usually my preferred, but those are the things that I like. Let's see. Rich Sanders, I'm still lamenting my loss of quick access directly to a bar of commands. I have to use the top ribbon. Requiring multiple selections to get a command is tedious. Custom toolbars. Oh, Richard, have I got one for you? I actually have a webinar on this, but I'll show you really quick. So in order to get your toolbars back, first thing to do is type in menu bar. Set that to 1. That's going to bring your menu bar up here, your old style pull down menu bar. go to Toolbars, AutoCAD, and I'm going to turn on Layers. Now I have the Layers toolbar turned on. Now I can right mouse click anywhere here and I can add them. If I have custom toolbars, I can now bring them in. So this is typically how I like to do this. One of the first things that I typically like to do when I'm in AutoCAD is that I do, oh, this is 25. I have not set up 25 yet, but I have a classic workspace that I bring in that turns off the ribbon, that has just my toolbars, things like that. If I'm doing production style work. So Richard, that's how you do it. Turn on menu bar, come up to tools, toolbars, AutoCAD, turn on a single toolbar, whatever you need. Then at that point, you can come in here and you can now do this. If you want to make a custom toolbar, you just type in CUI, right? This one's pretty easy. Go to CUI, come down here, toolbars, make a new toolbar, find your command, drag it up into the new toolbar, you're all set. I can help you with that. But I do have, I have a blog on this, restoring it, and I do have, I think I covered this in tips and tricks last year. I'll find that webinar, and I'll make sure to make note of that, Richard, and I'll have Lori send that to you. Large files with XREFs. On AutoSave, what happens on a crash? Depending on the type of crash, Shelly. So if AutoCAD just outright fails, right, gives you a fault, does not prompt you to save the file where you're at, the SV $ should still be there. If it does prompt you to save as an _recover file, it says AutoCAD's encountered an issue, wants to save your file as an _recover.dwg, you will lose that SV $. Let's see, is there a way to edit the option keyword within a command to select a specific OSNAP? Once the move command is active, can you type a P instead of PER? That is a good question. I know I used to do that with commands on a puck where I used to just put _PER. I don't know. Adam, let me think about that, Adam. I might get there. So more advanced question. I have noticed an issue in 2025 where text will display incorrectly. As far as I can tell, it affects all the text. It's not a file issue, as the text will appear normally when opened by other users. Hardware acceleration turn on and set to intermediate mode. Easy question for you, Brian or Corey, is if you are on Windows 11, I do notice that there are some troubles with Windows 11 and running DirectX 12. You can type in GFXDX. Let me put that answer right here. GFXDX12, set that to 0. And I'm sending that back to you. GFXDX12, type that in, set that to 0. So what it's doing right here, well, I'm gonna go a little advanced here, but under System, under Graphics Performance, you're gonna see that my graphics card is running DirectX 12, right? Hardware acceleration, this is how I usually run everything. I usually like my video memory caching up 4. If you're experiencing troubles with displays and things like that, type in GFXDX12, set that to 0. And what that's going to do is that it's going to change your system properties to work with DirectX 11 instead of 12. I've noticed quite a bit of problems with Windows 11, especially with DirectX 12, where going back to DirectX 11 is better. GFXDX12, I'm going to put that back to 1. All right, can you go over the OSNAP Z? Is there a way to keep it turned to 1 all the time? Randy, there is not, and I will show you why. System variables, right? We'll go OSNAP, right? OSNAP Z. Here's the big thing: is this is not a saved variable. So you have to set it every time. Now, that being said, you could create a bootstrap like acad.lsp, or actually I would probably set acad.doc.lsp, put it somewhere where you put in, right? You guys are making it fun for me today. Good questions. So in here, under my Lisp, where is it? Here. You could create a little bootstrap where you're doing command osnap z1, just like this, save it as acad.doc or acad.doc.lsp, put it somewhere, and then every time you open up a drawing, it's going to run that acad.doc.lsp as long as it's in one of your support paths, and it will always reset your osnap z to 1. Note, I found toolbars to be problematic on 4K displays. Even large image mode has tiny toolbars. Robert, that's going to be dependent on your screen scaling. I'm currently running a 4K screen here. I have 4K screens everywhere, and my toolbars do not exhibit that same set of behaviors. Sometimes it can also be your graphics card. So that's something to be aware of. Is there an easy way to bring in a table from Excel to AutoCAD? Oh, another good question. That one's easy. All right, let's go to Excel. If you want it to be an AutoCAD table, right? So let's take a look at here. So I have just this basic layers list, right? So I'm just going to grab this information, and I'm going to go copy. I'm going to come in here, go to home, paste, special, paste, AutoCAD entities. Don't use Microsoft Excel worksheet, use AutoCAD entities. Now it's an AutoCAD table that you can then format. That's the easiest way to bring it in without adding additional programming. So there are Lisp routines that you can do this with. There are some other things like that. This is going to be the easy way to bring in a table from Excel into AutoCAD and have it be a true AutoCAD table. Now, this is not linked in any way, shape, or form, so if I change anything in here, this won't matter. If I'd have gone paste special, pasted a link as an AutoCAD entity, this would create a linked table where this would be data linked back to that Excel workbook, Amanda, and then you could do that. The other way to do it, if you want to keep permanent data, you can actually go through data, you can go to insert, annotate table, and you can actually link your data where you have more granular control. What's the best way to update Excel and keep the formatting? So if you want, that's a good question. So if you have formatting in Excel that you want to keep inside of AutoCAD, you're going to want to create a data link. And I actually have a webinar on that. So you create a data link to the Excel workbook. The transactions you can set it up so that only Excel can make changes, or you can set it up that if you make a change inside AutoCAD, it will make a change to the Excel sheet when you're done, back and forth. And you have the ability to choose to keep the Excel formatting. So if the Excel table updates with formatting, it will update that. What if I want to link to Excel and keep it in Excel? That's the same process. You can do linked data, or again, if I do paste special, it's linked, which means I can't update any of the cells in here. But if I update my Excel workbook, I would come in here and I would just simply update the data link, and it would update my table. In early AutoCAD, maybe still under Windows 95, there was a right side options, used to be able to say arc, and you'd get many of those choices. You're talking about the sidebar menu, aren't you, Jose? I believe you're talking about that screen menu that was on the side. I actually covered that in my December webinar. Hang on just a second. Yes, we can turn that back on. If you were curious, you can't do any programming or customizing to it, but we can turn that back on. And that's one of those oddballs There it is. So it is, and I'll send this to you. And you have to do it this way. It's a parentheses, set var screen menu 1. That will turn on this old school file, edit, view 1, view 2, insert, format, tools 1, tools, draw 1, draw 2. Yep. So set var screen menu 1. All right. So why is it when you're working with a table, you have to mash escape 4 times to exit the command? Hold on. So which is better, AutoCAD table or link to Excel? Let me go back. So which is better, AutoCAD table or link to Excel? Now that's the $1 million question. What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish at the end of the day? I prefer to keep my AutoCAD stuff in AutoCAD as AutoCAD entities. I prefer to use AutoCAD tables because I have all of the table controls, where if I'm just bringing in Excel, I'm relying on Excel to do that specific, to handle the formatting. As you'll find sometimes as well, sometimes text won't show up correctly because Excel can read true type fonts and understand them, where AutoCAD may not, especially if the true type is not on your machine, or if it's not, if it's using an OSF or an open source font versus a true type. Excel can display those things correctly, whereas sometimes AutoCAD cannot. Really, it's personal preference. There is not really which is better or which is worse. It's all about which one do you actually want to see. I personally have always used just AutoCAD tables because that's what I like, because I can manipulate them as if they're an AutoCAD table rather than having to go back to Excel, modify Excel, and do that. All right, so let's go back to Tim. Why is it when working with a table you have to mash escape 4 times to exit the command? I'm assuming, like here, I can just click out and it's gone. If I double click in the cell, now I have to escape once to get out of the cell and escape twice to get out of the table. I'm not sure, Tim, why you're having to hit 4 times. You shouldn't have to. Can you import a PD file into an AutoCAD drawing permanently so it becomes part of the drawing and not an extra? Now we're going to get into an interesting question. Jim, is the PDF a vector-based PDF or is it a raster-based PDF? If it's a raster-based PDF, you're not going to be able to permanently attach it without saving the PDF as a JPEG, copying it, and pasting it as an OLE object. That's the only way you're going to get a raster to be a part of the drawing. But be warned, I do have a blog on that as well, on how to bring in raster images into AutoCAD. Be warned that it will cause your file size to bloat. Couple of other things to be very careful of if you're bringing in OLE objects. So let me bring one of those in since I happen to have one. Let me go to Snagit Editor since I happen to have something. All right, so let's go here. All right, we'll do this. All right, so if I just have an image right here in my Snagit Editor, I hit copy, I'm gonna go paste special. I'm gonna paste it as a device independent bitmap. You're gonna see that this is gonna be an OLE object, right? And I can do high graphics, monochrome, low graphics. So I can change that. One of the things to understand is that once it's in here, if my monitor and how I have things set up in this drawing is a different scale or a different resolution than somebody else, or if I'm changing versions of AutoCAD, you may see this OLE object shift. You may also see this OLE object suddenly change, stretch in one direction, which it normally shouldn't do, so it'll become compressed. The other thing to be very careful about with OLE objects is sometimes they will be just fine until you plot, and then when you go to plot the PDF, or you go to plot it, it will shift, in which case you have to export it as a PDF in order to get that to work. And I do have a blog on that. Making tables, and I want to be able to put the information into an Excel sheet and then print into CAD. All right, Amanda, I know I did one about data extraction. I know I've done a couple of things about tables. The link that Lori put in there in the general chat is a link to, I think, the last 16 or 18 webinars that I've done. If it's not in there, that you can't find what you need, let me know. I will get you well, she's got all the PDFs to all of my previous webinars, so I can help her figure out which ones she needs to send you. And then if you're a customer of ours, I can help you specifically with that. Put the information in Excel sheet and then print in AutoCAD. Okay, I think that covers all of those questions. Did I miss any? That's Jim's. Yeah, Brian, yeah, 2.6 flashback, right? So you want to make this layer name view wider here. This is a toolbar element, Tim. You can't make this any wider because this is a fixed component that is no longer supported, so to speak. So we can't make this, well, I can actually make this wider with a change. The problem is that the text truncates here. Oh, settings to help with performance. James, that's a good question. So I have a blog on that, but let's talk about some of the things I typically like to do. So first thing we're going to do is go into options. Right, I'm going to start with the display. First place we're going to start, display tab. Turn off your paper shadow. Right, absolutely turn off paper shadow. The reason why is that the paper shadow puts a faint gray haze, especially like for me, I wouldn't notice it because I run black on black. Right, this is what I'm used to, black on black. If you run the gray background and a white sheet, that paper shadow will put a gray haze around the border, and it's a huge resource hog. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I go into system, always change this to regen when switching layouts, and I'll explain why. So what's happening here, depending on what your setting is, if you're in AutoCAD and you have multiple drawings open and each drawing has multiple drawing tabs down at the bottom, and you have it to cache everything that you do in AutoCAD is going to get slower and slower the more things you open, because every time you make a change, regardless of where you are, it has to update everything. When you're caching the model tab in the last layout, it means it's only going to cache what you're working on in model space and the last layout tab that you're in, which can help. And if you do regen when switching layouts, that means the only thing that it's going to have into memory is whatever tab you're on, model or the sheet. This is my preferred for graphics performance. Unless you're doing renderings or lighting, advanced materials, all that stuff, turn all of this nonsense off. In your details tab, I usually run advanced mode with smooth light and display. If your video memory caching level is all the way up to 5, you're going to have problems. And the reason why you're going to have those problems is because when you're set to 5, AutoCAD is going to try and consume all of your video card memory for caching, and it's not going to give you any wiggle room in your video card for anything else that requires video resources, i.e. if you're running Bluebeam, if you're running Adobe PDF, a lot of those things do require some hardware. So if you set this down to 4, you're going to notice a better performance curve. Those are usually the big ones. The rest of the things are small things. I usually do not like selection preview turned on at all. Right, so you'll see if I'm here, none of my stuff highlights when I bump over it. Right, if I turn those on, go selection and I turn those on, every time I get close to touching something, you're going to see it wants to highlight. Now, This usually isn't a bad idea. Now, the problem with this is if you bump over a very high density hatch, your whole machine's gonna come to a screaming halt until it regens that, and it shows you that. That's why I typically run with those off. Those are usually the big three, right? So those are the big ones. And I do have a blog. Funny enough, hang on just a second. I've got that blog here. Yeah, let's put this. I'm going to put that in here. Tips to improve performance. The other thing to be very aware of is that you should probably make sure that your drawings are clean. That's this one here. It's a best practices to clean drawings that come from outside your organization, but one of the big things that nobody does, and I don't understand why it's not the default, is XREF, REGAPPCTL. It's in that last one. Set that to, well, actually 2025 now has a 2 for it. Normally I set that to 1. This is where you run into a lot of problems. Right, XREF RegApp control. So 0 is the default, right? When the properties of objects such as color, line, type, line, nope, XREF RegApp control. Default has been 0 until you hit 25. 25 is now 2. So legacy behavior. If you have a drawing that's dirty and you XREF it into your drawing, you've now brought all that dirty stuff for registered applications into your drawing. Current behavior is number 1. That's what I usually set it to. Only the necessary RegApp records are copied into the host drawing, which usually results in none. Number 2, which is new for 25, limits records copied to the host drawing to those related to custom applications. So that's typically how this works. Those are the things that I like to do for that. Let's see, I like layer toolbar, settings performance. When I XREF a PDF into drawing, sometimes the view shifts. How to work around this? That's probably going to be, if you're XREFing a PDF into a drawing and the view shifts, that's going to be more specific to the PDF itself and or screen resolution. There might be some other things going on. How do you rotate objects in the viewport but keep it the same in model? D-view twist. Right, so if I come in here and I go D-view, it's locked viewport, hang on. Let me come in here, let me unlock my viewport. Right, D-view, enter, twist, rotate it 45 degrees, exit out of this. So this has been rotated 45 degrees in this viewport. But if I go back to model, model is not rotated at all. That's how you do that. You said with both screen bar menu 1, AutoCAD and AutoCAD architecture, the right tab showed up blank with nothing. AutoCAD architecture will not have it because this only lives in AutoCAD, and AutoCAD architecture does not load the acad.cuyx. AutoCAD architecture runs under its own ACA, which does not have the sidebar menu. If you needed an ACA in AutoCAD architecture, you would need to add it there. It should be here for basic AutoCAD. Do you know how to change coordinates in CAD map to insert shape files from GPS information? All right. So Sue, if you're in basic AutoCAD, if you go through the GeoMap, you will never be geolocated correctly. Your best bet would be to move up to Map 3D, which you should have access to. Map 3D has a traditional AutoCAD style interface, just like this, a workspace. So you do have Map 3D. So what you would do in Map 3D is type in map CS assign to correctly assign a coordinate system, and then map I insert to import the shape file. Best scaling tips for PDF underlay that does not have O-snap grip options. That means you're bringing in a raster, and your best bet is to pick the center of the rasterized line. What's the difference between D-view twist and UCS 3-point rotation? All the twist is doing is it's twisting everything around the Z elevation or around the Z axis. So it's only moving X and Y, where the UCS 3-point rotation, you can alter the Z. D-view twist is the old school, only rotates X and Y around the Z axis. 3-point, you can actually alter the Z. That's the difference there. You guys have had a lot of great questions today. I really do appreciate it. Why, if you use D-view, does it come up in the purge option? All right, let's go back to here. I don't see a purge option here. I'm not sure where you're getting D-view, twist, and purge. Oh, merge. Right, you're getting detail, view style, dim style, layers, to line types, materials, plot styles, shapes, section view styles, visual styles, reg apps. Right. Shouldn't come up in here. I see details and dim styles. I've never seen D-view come up in here. So I'm not sure where that's coming from under blocks. Oh, because you've got a D-view block that gets created. It's always there. Plan command is a nice way to get view rotation based on a UCS, yes. In some drawings, when zooming around, sometimes large arcs appear not to connect to the lines at the endpoints, yes. Now that, Tim, is going to be dependent on a couple of things. That's actually an AutoCAD defect, where I can have a polyline that goes from a straight line to an arc segment. If I split my viewport, or so let's say I split my drawing view here, I'm going to go back to model space. If I go to view and I split this into two views, that generally occurs if I'm running split views. If I go back to a single view, it usually heals itself. I've seen that. It also depends on how far away you are from 0, 0. Sometimes I've seen that scenario if you're far away from 0, 0. Now, Tim, I know you're in Civil 3D most of the time, so I know that we're civil people tend to not be anywhere near 0, 0. But that's something you and I can have a discussion with, and you can show me if you've run across that again. But that's usually where I find it. It's a calc problem. It can be a calc problem. It also, splines especially are problematic the farther or the closer you get to 0, 0, or the smaller you make the spline. So if you have a spline object and you scale it very small, it will no longer be a spline object. It'll become chunky because of how the calculations are done for the spline nodes. And like I usually tell people, don't use splines. Those are terrible things. AutoCAD gave them to us. Just because we have them doesn't mean we should use them, because they are limited functionality for what we can actually do with them. Personal preference, right? I'll get off that soapbox now. All right, and Lori, we are right up on our time limit. This has been a really good one, guys. You guys have asked a lot of great questions. How can I keep the size of the drawing as small as possible? Purge everything that you can out of the drawing. Don't explode your blocks, because every time you explode a block, you make your drawing slightly larger. If you're working in a vertical product, sometimes if you don't have any specific type of data, like if you don't have architecture style walls, if you don't have plant 3D pipes and connections, if you don't have MEP fixtures and MEP things like ducting or electrical, or in Civil 3D, you don't have a true surface, things like that. You can type in -export to AutoCAD 2018, and it will create basically it will create a stripped down version of your drawing. It will export everything, clean as much of it up as it can, and give you a basic AutoCAD geometry drawing. And you should have D-view twist, but you have to do it inside a viewport, and you have to do it with an unlocked viewport. And you type in D-view, you hit enter, and then you can get TW for twist. And with that, we are right up on our time limit, guys, and I do right. So thank you. My next webinar. Oh, I do have one other question since I have some of you guys here. We're going to open up a quick poll since I have time. How many of you is your first time attending? This is always a curiosity question. We're always curious how many people this is your first time versus not. I'll give this another second or two. We're going to go ahead and close the poll. 36% of you are new. That's always good. I like seeing new people. So a couple of things. Our next webinar, or my next webinar, is going to be October 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern.
But we'll all see you back here October 11th. Have a great day, everyone.